The Tower Yearbook has been just incredible for this university. I think back to the rich history that Northwest Missouri State University has had since 1905, and that history spans so very much. The beautiful thing behind that is the Tower Yearbook has been a living history of Northwest Missouri State University. And so that living history will live on in perpetuity. People can go back to the yearbooks in whatever format and really relive their days and understand the past, the present, and how we're building for the future.
The yearbook is essentially a love letter to the university and the students and the community. The 100th year is like the biggest, most intense love letter because it's not only saying what we love about this year, but about 100 editions of years of love and dedication to the university.
Northwest's beginnings date back to 1905, when state and local legislators decided a teacher training school should be built in Northwest Missouri. The location for the school was initially undecided, and along with Maryville, the towns of Albany, Burlington Junction, Quitman, Rockport, Savannah, and Stanberry hoped to be selected. Of course, we now know which town won the bid for what was to be called the 5th District Normal School. For the first 5 years of the school's existence, classes were spread out across a variety of buildings around town. The auditorium of the Methodist Church, the basement of the Carnegie Library, and the old seminary building were all utilized for classroom space. Construction on a main academic hall began in 1906. Delays in state funding halted construction on multiple occasions, but in 1910, the administration building was finally ready for students and faculty. The original vision of a unified campus was now a reality. On a crisp fall day in 1915, a bugle sounded outside the administration building. On cue, 200 students exited their classes and ventured outside, declaring a holiday. Leaders of the walkout, facing potential expulsion, reached a compromise with President Ira Richardson, turning Walkout Day into an annual, planned holiday that is still recognized today. The first Tower Yearbook was published in 1917. Originally named after the distinctive Gothic turrets atop the administration building, the name now is representative of the memorial bell tower at the center of campus. While Bobby Bearcat cheers on teams today, Mike the dog was the school's first mascot. Mike ventured onto campus one day, decided he enjoyed college life, and spent his days cheering on Northwest's athletic teams while sporting his green and white outfit. His headstone sits just to the east of the administration building. 4 presidents presided over the school in its first 15 years. In 1921, Ewell Lampkin, a man who had never attended college himself, began his role as the 5th. Over the next 2.5 decades, he would guide the school through the Great Depression and World War II. The next edition of the tower wouldn't arrive until 1922. By then, the 5th District Normal School had evolved into the Northwest Missouri State Teachers College, highlighting a shift from the issuance of Bachelor of Pedagogy diplomas to the more valuable Bachelor of Science degrees. There was originally no pond on campus, but in the late 30s, President Lampkin decided it was a necessary addition. It soon proved to be a more challenging project than originally anticipated. The area dug out, located just west of the Gaunt House, wouldn't hold water. Eventually, the culprit was discovered. Drainage tiles had been installed in the area years before. The problem was resolved, and today it's known as Colden Pond. The Depression posed a threat to the livelihood of the college, but Lampkin utilized his connections in state and federal government to acquire New Deal programs. Federal money funded the construction of a laboratory school building in 1936, now Brown Hall, and Wells Library in 1938. Just as 1945 marked the end of the war, it also marked the end of Lampkin's leadership and the arrival of J.W. Jones, who would serve for the next 19 years as the college's 6th president. Under Jones, Northwest grew in student enrollment, academics, and facilities. Disaster struck in the early morning of April 28, 1951. A gas tank situated just off of the Wabash Railroad tracks exploded, sending shards of metal hurling through the back of the women's residence hall and setting the building ablaze. The explosion rocked the entire town, and fellow students, faculty, and Maryville residents quickly rushed to the aid of the hall's occupants. More than 24 women were injured in the incident, all recovered except for Roberta Steele, who died more than a year and a half later from her injuries. The college renamed the dormitory Roberta Hall in her memory, and residents claim that Roberta, who was known as having a good sense of humor and a mischievous nature, playfully haunts the building to this day. In 1949, the school dropped teacher from its name, signaling an expansion of academic programs and degree offerings. At the same time, the number of students on campus began to increase dramatically. While enrollment was consistently below 400 and comprised mostly of women during the war years, by 1950, 750 students attended Northwest, with many resuming or starting their education under the GI Bill. 5 years later, enrollment had grown to more than 1,000. By 1962, nearly 2,500 students attended, and by 1970, enrollment hit 5,000 for the first time. It was during this period of immense growth that many of the buildings on campus today were constructed, including the Olive Duluth Fine Arts Building, Colden Hall, Mabel Cook, Garrett Strong, Falk, and the aptly named J.W. Jones Student Union. The shift from trains to automobiles in the 50s and 60s meant the school also had to grapple with parking, an issue many would claim still remains unresolved more than 50 years later. Jones retired in 1964, leaving the tail end of this growth period to Robert Foster. A year after arriving, Foster brought forth a proposal for a memorial bell tower to honor faculty, students, and alumni who had served their country. The project was funded solely through donations from alumni and other supporters of the college, and in 1971, the iconic structure was complete. That same year, students protested Volume 50 of the Tower Yearbook. The editor-in-chief, an art major, attempted a different approach to documenting the year, opting for a more visually focused book. However, many sections standard to a typical yearbook weren't deemed visually pleasing enough and were left out. One omission in particular, the removal of all group photos, left Greek organizations and many others across campus furious. In response, students dunked, burned, and nailed books to telephone poles. The tower staff took the feedback to heart, and group photos returned the following year. The 1970s brought several more changes to the school. Northwest Missouri State College finally became Northwest Missouri State University in 1972, and in 1977, B.D. Owens became the school's 8th president. However, the 70s were a difficult decade overall. Enrollment declined, state funding decreased, and the school's future would hang in the balance in the summer of 1979 when the administration building caught fire. It was likely faulty electrical wiring that started the inferno. In no time, the building was ablaze, and witnesses scrambled to save computers, university records, and anything else they could find. By the time the fire was finally contained, 60% of the building was a loss. The cost of restoring it to its original state was estimated at $15 million. But soon, another plan emerged. A new performing arts center could be constructed to replace the Deer Wester Theater, which was located in the collapsed back wing. Wells Library could be repurposed to house both the broadcasting program and the speech and theater department, which had lost all their equipment and classroom space. The construction of a brand new library would allow Wells to be repurposed. Most importantly, all of this would cost less than restoring the administration building to its previous function. The state agreed to provide funding in early 1980, and the plan moved forward. By 1983, the new library, named after President Owens, was complete. The Performing Arts Center opened its doors a year later, and in 1986, the Broadcast and Journalism Department, along with a speech and communication program, completed their move into Wells Hall. Owens retired in 1984. Taking his place was Dean Hubbard, who was impressed with Northwest's focus on computers, an effort led by Computing Services Director John Rickman. The university would expand its computing infrastructure even further over the next few years, culminating with the introduction of the electronic campus in '87. Northwest was the first public university in the nation to introduce a campus-wide computing system, which included terminals in offices, residence halls, and the library. The initiative received coverage from national media outlets, and Northwest's focus on technology continued into the next decade and into the 2000s, when the university began its student laptop program. Tower Yearbook also remained on the cutting edge of technology during this period, introducing a CD component to the yearbook in 1996 and a DVD in 2005. The football program found incredible success near the turn of the century. Led by Mel Churchma, the program went 15-0 in 1998, ending the season with their first NCAA Division II national championship. They captured the title again the following year and took home 4 more in 2009, 2013, 2015, and 2016. The Bearcat men's basketball program, coached by Ben McCollum, captured its first national championship in 2017, achieved an undefeated season and brought back its second title in 2019, and won its third in 2021. But the university's national accolades haven't been limited to just athletics. Tower was inducted into the Associated Collegiate Press Hall of Fame in 1993, joining just a handful of student publications across the country to receive the honor. The ACP's Pacemaker Award, often referred to as the Collegiate Pulitzer, is widely regarded as the highest honor a college publication can receive. Tower has won the Pacemaker 10 times and has been a finalist an additional 12 times. ACP's Pacemaker 100 lists the most awarded college media outlets in the organization's 100-year history. Tower comes in number 17 overall and is the 5th most decorated college yearbook in the country. This culture of success has been championed by current president John Jasinski. Jasinski served the university in a variety of roles from 1986 to 2007 and returned in 2009 to become Northwest's 10th president.
What makes us unique is that being a Bearcat isn't just a slogan. Learning, caring, connecting, practicing civility, and showing pride is what we live each and every day. Right now, we have a Tower Yearbook in a format in 2021. But how do we know what the format will be in 2031, 2041, and 51? We don't. But I'll tell you what, I know this, our students, our faculty and staff will be ready to adapt and evolve with the ages.
It kind of freaks me out that this is the 100th tower, because I worked on the tower when it was like, I don't know, the 70th tower or so I realize a lot of towers have come out since I've graduated. But I'm excited that we've reached 100 years. I mean, it means a lot to me as a former tower editor. I hope it means a lot to this year's group of editors to realize how much work has been done before them. One of my favorite things to do is to come to these workshops right at the beginning of the year, because everything's possible. You know, there's no limitation that's been set. They're deciding what they want to work on. And I love hearing the new ideas. I love thinking about how much every year the book advances as far as the new things people want to do or the new ideas. And so for me, it's exciting just to hear the new stuff. It keeps me excited about what's going on.
Create some sample layouts and build some modules and components.
Every year, the thing we try to do with the yearbook is make it about that particular year. This year is going to stand out no matter what. So embrace that that's what it is, and just make that happen and capture the year for what it is, including all the confusion and issues that are going to come up this year.
This year is a lot different for many reasons, and we're kind of just at this point rolling with the punches, and we want to do it in a way that we're not just forced to change, but we're apt for it, we're ready for it, and we want to make that change memorable. We want to make it unique. We're having portraits outside because of the social distancing issue. We had intended maybe to use the backdrop. The weather didn't work with that, so we're just, again, rolling with the punches, making it into something that's marketable, that's cool, and I think it'll really brighten that spot of our book.
In previous years, what we did is we had all of our portraits inside the student union, so we could have the backdrop and the lights, and we also included puppy portraits, but this year, due to COVID-19, we can have the puppy portraits outside with our regular portraits, so it can all be as one. And instead of having a backdrop, we have just a greenery in the background to just allow for a more natural look to the portraits.
I'm someone who feels safe in the routine, so especially with all the changes this year, I'm really trying to break out of my own shell, and I know our team's trying to do that and encourage each other to do that. So I think we're trying to view it from a different perspective of like, yeah, this change is different for us, but it can also be a really marketable and unique thing for Tower. And I think what's really important with Yearbook is if you're gonna do something different, it needs to be remarkable and it needs to be, you need to own it. AJ and myself were very particular about the people that we hired to be on staff this year. Number one quality, we were looking at people, we wanted them to be enthusiastic and positive, especially with the number of obstacles that this year holds. So with the possibility of moving online, with people wearing masks, with a lot of events being canceled or postponed. So we needed people who put their love of yearbook first and the difficulty second. So it is a large task, and one that I'm so grateful that we found a great group of people that were willing to embark on this difficult task and that love yearbook and love publication enough to want to stick it out.
I definitely think to put something together like a yearbook, it takes a team player. I'm always happy to collaborate with other people, get new ideas. It just gives everybody a chance to put their creativity into it, and I like being a part of a team that can be creative together. It's nice to see my work really put out there to the public. I want to hear what people feel about my work and get feedback, and I'm going to get to do that, especially with the yearbook when it comes out in April.
Some of you guys, there's unlimited options about where we can go with the 100th yearbook. And as the editor-in-chief, I really wanted to facilitate their creative ideas and let them take it in the direction that it needed to be taken, because we can talk a lot about how this year is very special to the alumni and the people who have created yearbooks, all the towers before, and to the students in the university, but the people on this staff make up this university. You know, they're contributors themselves, so they're great vessels to kind of teach us about where to go and what the creative vision needs to be. So definitely putting a lot in their hands and telling them we believe in them, and I know we picked them for a reason, so they're great.
This year we're changing how we've actually structured our yearbook, and it's going to be more chronological. So we're starting off with coverage from last spring, and obviously we had to end the semester short. So what we're doing there is kind of just catching up from last spring and events that happened there into the summer and then fall and winter. So far in the first and second deadline, we have done our spring and summer and a little bit of fall coverage. So That covers, homecoming or certain things that have happened over the summer, such as the Black Lives Matter movement and sports that were kind of canceled last spring and couldn't go through. So going into our third and fourth deadline, it's basically just going to be a lot of winter aspects and covering, other things that have happened since homecoming. Some of the specific module details that we've kind of designed this year are based around timestamps or timelines. So incorporating a lot of that historic element, and we're going to be using previous Tower Yearbook pictures to kind of get a picture of what it's been like for the past 100 years. So kind of showcasing how things have changed through those pictures and including different elements like black and white and making it kind of seem that historic feel to it. Our theme is highlights this year, so I think that kind of correlates with actually highlighting things that have happened in history. So using just a lot of like white space and clean design that makes it look classy is kind of what came to our head when we thought of the 100th edition. We've been pretty lucky that we've all had the time to come into the newsroom still and work together, and I think that's important because I can kind of look over my desk here and I can talk to Cecilia or Chloe or Emily and actually have that visual picture of what they're going for in that design instead of having to send an email or a text and say, hey, how's your page looking? It helps being together, all of us in the same room, and we can kind of work off of each other's designs and go for that same idea, because being at home is a lot different, and especially if they don't have all the fonts and the colors and the resources to use, it just makes the whole process more streamlined here.
Social media used to be on top of another position. It was, another writer or a designer ran the social media pages, and so I think it was just put on the back burner. And so for me to have the sole position of a social media editor, it gives me more time to put into social media and not focus on other things. Some things we wanted to focus on this year were student features, historical posts, current events, and advertising for our distributions and when we're hiring new employees. We've had a lot of success with the student features this year because they're able to share it on their social media pages, and it just gets the people that they follow to find our page. And we're going to be using those student features in our book, which I think is really cool, that we kind of give people a sneak peek into what might be in our book.
COVID-19 has put a lot of challenges on us. Early on, when we didn't even know if we were going to have in-person classes this fall, we didn't know if we could do a book. How do you produce a book that relies so heavily on photographs of campus activities and events and organizations and student mugshots when there are no students on campus to take those photos of? So we had serious questions as to whether or not we would get to produce it. We didn't want to produce a book that was just screenshots of Zoom meetings. No one wants that. My students didn't want that, and we're pretty sure the consumers wouldn't want that. So when the university said we're coming back and we're going to make an attempt at this, we got excited because we knew that we would at least have a chance to produce the book. And the further we got into the semester with in-person classes, the more excited the students became because we knew we were going to have content for the book. And now we've reached a point in the semester where we're fairly certain we'll be here through the expected end date of Thanksgiving week. So we're going to have plenty of content for the book. And because we're a spring book that goes to press in mid-March, 90% of the content for our book is typically done by December every year anyway. So right now we're just adapting to what can we do, what can we not do. Right now there are no sports in the yearbook because there are no sports to put in the yearbook. So we're doing athlete profiles. Homecoming was different because usually we have a 6 to 8 page spread on the homecoming football game. Well, there was no football game this year, just a handful of on-campus events that were all changed due to COVID. So we had to figure out how to expand that and include it in a book so that we still have as many pages as we've budgeted for and paid for with the printer. So it's going to take a long time to get some of that traditional content into the book because it's harder to do under COVID protocols. But we're committed to doing it. We're committed to making certain that every student who wants to be in the book is in the book. Every student who wants a book can get a book in the spring. And, hopefully everything will come together for a great centennial edition that everybody will be proud to hold in their hands when it comes out in mid-April.
When we went into the cover session, we had a planning session before with our design staff, and AJ and myself, and this was a time where we wanted to kind of like inch closer to a cohesive look for the book. That night we narrowed into an image that we wanted, and we went into the cover session. We got to sit down with our Herff Jones rep and the designer from Herff Jones, and they kind of like expanded our vision a little bit on what those elements that we were looking at, and we've decided to go with something that we've never really done before, at least not in many years. So the book is actually going to have a base cover, and then it's going to have a slip cover over it, so almost like a dust jacket of a book. The essence of the idea is that there is going to be so many people who are holding this book. We want to give them an option, like, what is your taste? So the base cover of the book is a white linen and has a gold foil, and it says the theme of our book, which is highlights. Underneath it says 100th edition, 2021 Tower. This is just a classic look. It was something that we had talked about in the very beginning stages of development of theme. We wanted something that was like classic, good, clean, simple, just like is nice to look at. That's what that base cover kind of comes from. It's been a while since we've had some pictures on the book. I wanted to play around with what that might look like. And in the cover session, our designer kind of helped us to think about, well, what if we get to have the clean, simple cover and also get the photos on the dust jacket? So we're going to have the dust jacket be exclusively photos. We're thinking it'll be photos of what Northwest looked like 100+ years ago. It all ties into our theme. So these photos are going to be black and white. They're going to be square shape, which is, we're doing the 9x9 square for the book size. It all kind of ties in together, and it's just a cool way to let people pick.
I work for Herff Jones. We're the company that prints the tower. We have printed it, I think, at least 35 years, almost 40 years of the 100. And I have been the rep for about 10 years. As a rep, I just am a partner for the staff. I help with whatever they need, and then I, of course, am the liaison with the plant to coordinate production and budget and all that jazz. I think a year like the 100 year, makes everybody realize, how long, the book has been a tradition for the school, and how the yearbook is the only place that some things are recorded. If somebody's looking for a story or a picture or something from the past, that's where they're going to go, and to know that we're part of that tradition is pretty cool.
Tonight, this evening, we're going to go over the first 100 pages that we submitted of the 352, and everyone will give insight, thoughts about what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and then that way we can go back real quick and make any changes. And then for the next 252 pages, we'll have all that knowledge to go in and just finish the book out strong.
I think bringing in new staff at semester really gives us a renewed energy. A lot of us have been here for the semester. We're, in the thick of it now. A lot of us are getting exhausted, and you know how it is, long nights at the newsroom and lots of work, lots of hours, lots of content. So I think bringing in some new staff is really going to uplift that energy and just get us back on a road where we can feel successful and positive as we head towards March when we submit all of our pages.
The people that we brought on this semester have experience in yearbook or have experience in their field of like design, photography, or reporting. So just bringing that element back into the staff and having people that have experience, but also giving them that teaching edge of allowing them to learn here.
We finish everything in March. So March 1st, everything needs submitted. So January and February are going to be a whirlwind, but it's something that we've really done so much more than I thought we could during the pandemic in this fall semester. I've been so impressed and blown away by the staff, their commitment to the work and their dedication to the work and making it happen amid everything else. This is going to be a crazy time, and we're going to be crunched for time, and we got a lot left to do. I'm not worried in the slightest because I think we have the right people doing the right things. And, you know, we just give the power to them and we trust them to do what they know they can do. And we're going to finish this book strong.
Today and yesterday we started our group portraits. We have a goal here during this event is to get every student organization captured in the yearbook. What they do is they take their picture with their group and then they will file down and then take their individual portrait. And then this just really helped with the efficiency process of making sure that we got every organization captured that wanted their picture, but then also including every individual in our individual portrait section. We made sure that every group that wanted to be captured in the 100th edition is. We emailed every single student organization this year, and we reached out to everyone, and if they replied back or filled out our link, then they had the opportunity to come here and get their photo taken.
It's been like really special, I would say. Made a lot of friends through it. Gotten to work with my brother. We've never been close through high school, and now we have to go to college together and we're in the same organization. And so now we made this book together and then gotten really close with all the photographers on staff as well. And so they've become really close people. There was a spread we did where it was just empty because there was no spring sports, and so it was just getting photos of empty places. You just have to be really creative with it. When you're getting people with their masks, there's no emotion to them really, but you just have to find when they're showing the emotion and everything, just when you're timing it all. Now, since you have to be so different with the way you take photos, you don't really get their full face, you don't get what's really going on. So now you get to really explore with what was the best part of that event. And it's not how many photos you took at it, it's you took that one good photo, and so that's what you're gonna use on it. We had books in high school where you would open it and there was probably 6 or 7 photos on one page just crammed together. But this one, you open it and you just get one idea and just one photo that tells a really good story.
Nicole and I were there last night in the newsroom working. We looked up at our deadline clock inside the newsroom and it said 13 days. And we just shook our heads at each other and we're we're almost there. So it's exciting that here in about another month, we'll be able to hold the book in our hands and see all the work that all of our staff did, all the planning and organization from Nicole and I went into play.
Ultimately, we're all using cameras that are from the newsroom that we all got from the newsroom. So our photos are pretty cohesive just because we're using the same cameras. But we also edit to where we pull up our exposure a little bit and make the photos lighter so that when they print out, they're not super dark. And that's one of the biggest things that's made our photos cohesive, as well as trying to get color in there, get vivid photos, get emotion. What I tell all of the other photographers is to look at the eyes, and that's what tells you all the emotion behind the photo. You can definitely tell the difference when somebody is smiling or when they're smiling big than when they're not smiling. And I honestly think it's all in the eyes. So that's what I've been telling everyone to focus on.
I wanted the reporters to really dive into the story and really talk to students and community and faculty and get the whole story. And then also there was the added historical element, so we weren't just getting the full story from this year, but we were getting the full story full circle. I kind of pushed this year doing more secondary coverage, so getting stats and numbers and stuff to make graphs and make it more interesting to read, so there's still information, but it's not long stories to read. But then also student features are some of the longer stories because they're telling student stories and you can't tell something in such short copy. I think this year has been a really hard year for everyone, and I think the pandemic has been a really negative thing in everyone's lives, and I think highlights, I just associate with that with a positive, pulling out the good in every situation. And so this book, we were highlighting the things that were happening on campus and in the Maryville community. And yes, the pandemic is still a big thing, but we were highlighting other aspects, which was really cool.
No peeking. I'm not nervous. No peeking. Oh my. Don't open it yet. Okay. Here you go. Don't open it. Don't open.
Alright, you took the book from me.
3, 2, 1. Open.
Oh,
So cute.
I love the color of your own. Oh, I love that you it blows a hole on the back. That's so cute. I don't want to know what Christmas is like.
That's so cute.
There you go.
Technically, what I saw was also on the front.
I love it. He said, I don't want to see what Christmas is like at your house.
What I really want this book to do is to remind everybody of how important it is to have a book. Why the yearbook is important is you capture that essence of the year. It's your history, it's your timeline, it's a snapshot of what life was like at Northwest Missouri State University. This book, you can truly call it a pandemic book because the coverage of this book, being chronological, starts essentially with the pandemic last year when the campus shut down. So you see, what life was like at Northwest in a year unlike any year that Northwest has ever experienced. That's what makes these books so important and why they need to continue to be a part of Northwest going forward.
Well, we're very grateful that we got to be in person this year, that's for sure. That's something that I went into this year wondering, am I gonna have to manage a staff that's gonna be scattered, and we're gonna have to Zoom for every meeting, we're gonna have to go for online resources. I spoke in a seminar over the summer about how to turn yearbook online. That was the reality that I was living in up until we got the call that we could be here in August. So very grateful that we got to be here, and I think it really did wonders for our staff, because in a year where we shouldn't have grown as close together, we certainly did, and my staff definitely stood up and showed what really mattered, and that was the perseverance, and it was the perseverance to grow closer together through this experience rather than further apart, and it was the perseverance to, although that people were dealing with a lot of personal stuff and a lot of health related issues and a lot of really serious life stuff, they showed up every day for this book, and that's why it is the book that it is, and it's greater because we grew through trial. I'm very glad that this year was captured on film, because it's just something unlike we've ever seen before from Tower, for sure. It was just a matter of having the right people, right place, right time, incredible staff, incredible advisors, incredible people who really wanted to push the envelope on this year and who really wanted to do something special and remarkable and something that people are going to remember. I love that this is going to be something for our staff to look at, but also in the way that you guys have made this video, it's going to be something for everyone. It's going to be for the alumni, it's going to be for the viewer, it's going to be for Northwest, and it's going to be for our staff. And it's just very humbling, and just that I was able to be a part of it in any sort of way. Yeah, I'll remember it forever. It's very special.